merhaba.
This meeting is being recorded.
Hi, good evening to everybody. Thank you so much for joining us at the Conversations for Decoloniality and Fashion by the Research Collective. Apologies this evening because Angela won't be able to join us, but she's with us in her spirit. So as we normally do, we invite a speaker to join us. And then in the first 30 minutes, we'll just share some thoughts and some questions around the particular questions that the readings raised, and then this will be followed by a group discussion where we can just kind of relax and talk more about the issues that have been raised by these really important questions. So hello Alexandra, thank you so much. Hi, thank you so much. And I'm just saying apologies, Angela won't make it this evening. But we are very, very, very excited to be joined by Solen, and we're really looking at three kind of concepts that sort of surfaced, and so this evening session is really in a kind of dialogue with the work of Kader Attia, who Angela has been in dialogue with, and he would have loved to have joined us in the dialogue, so therefore shares his work this evening, and to kind of in that reflection with Solen. So Solen, for those of you that don't know, Solen is an associate professor of the Fashion and Textile Design Department of Izmir University of Economics in Turkey. She is the author of Dress Against Disaster, and that was in 2007 already. Which provides a theoretical basis for a design project that she supervised and exhibited at the Social Design Biennale in Utrecht. Her research interests include conceptual fashion, interdisciplinary fashion studies, and ethical and sustainable fashion design. Her artistic presentations and exhibitions challenge the borders between design, art, and craft. Her design project Ragdoll, that has been co-created with women and children, is registered as a utility model by a Turkish patent institute in 2015 and can be produced and personalized by the user. And in 2016, Solen edited Sustainable Fashion, published in Turkish, that has become quite influential. And then I think also since then you've published Slowness in Fashion. So that was in 2020. So for this evening, we looked at the work of Kader. There was a really extensive interview with him in conversation with Charles Stankiewicz, and then shared a syllabus that is currently on at La Colonie. We'd really welcome you, Solen, into this dialogue this evening, and we shared the work of Kader as part of this dialogue, and perhaps maybe just as an introduction to your work and to you.
Are frozen? Erika is frozen.
Concept is also to your work. Thank you.
Thank you so much for inviting me in these very meaningful conversations. Actually, I know Erika for a long time. My lifetime friend, I would say. I really appreciate her work a lot. And I know Sandra from a distance, from her books and writings, and Francesco and Sanem and other friends. Hello, and actually I don't want to disappoint you, but I didn't prepare any presentation here today because it was too soon, and you actually frankly also asked me not to prepare any presentation, so it will be a kind of friendly talk, I guess. But what I actually would like to start, of course, in terms of talking about reparation, of course, I start to think about these concepts by making. And it was before these books, after Dress Against Disasters, but I had the path of exploring different journeys around fashion with interaction with other disciplines, fashion from a futuristic perspective, fashion from the aspect of trans, and many other things. But after kind of 2010, when I started to teach a course called Ethics and Social Responsibility in Design in Izmir University of Economics, through different kind of readings that I did with students, I learned, I started to question, I started to criticize, and I wanted to do something basically. And my journey of ethical fashion started like this. If I can, if you let me to open my my slides, maybe I can. I would like to show you some of my inspirations.
I think you can. Do you want to try?
Okay. First, I'm opening this and share screen. Yeah, I think now I'm not able to share my screen because it says the host disabled participants screen sharing.
Okay, there we go. I've just done that. See if you can do it again.
Okay.
Hi, Pierre. There we go.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah.
Hi, everyone.
Hello. So I sent you a piece of text which was a review of my second solo exhibition, I would say, in 2012. And it was published in Pat magazine by one of my colleagues, Dilek İmam. If you could able to read, I don't know, but the exhibition is called Ahimsa. And this was after actually my grandmother handed over this dress to me. And after I read this article with students. So these two inspirations are a dress which my grandmother created in 1940s. It's a machine sewn dress, but halfly handmade. And it was too small, and she was keeping probably for giving to me for one day. And she said, do whatever you want with that dress. And I immediately got a message that I have to do something with this. And until that, I was keeping all these old stuff. I was not able to throw them away. I was not able to give them away, or I was not able to dress them up. And this was a kind of challenge for me to touch this. And after being able to touch this dress, and when I read this article of dear Hazel in what she wrote in 2008 about the possibility of thinking slowness and fashion, or at that point, maybe at that time, it was also a kind of paradoxical relation when we thought about sustainable fashion and sustainability and fashion together. But she was bringing also the concept of slow, which really made me also question if there will be a kind of hope for the future to create a new system of design when I started to criticize the fashion system. And when I started to work on old garments, and of course the first piece of creation out of this dress was this, and it was like a kind of collage, and it was made out of also a mixture of my shirt, my grandmother's dress, some more dated piece of garments, 100 years dated garments from traditional weaving villages. And after that, the journey continued. From the surplus of that dress, the second dress came, and the Ahimsa exhibition from all these old stuff from my family, from 3 generations of my family, the woman of my family. I collected all of these things, and I actually transformed, facelifted, and resignified them, resementified them, and created different kind of narrations. Sometimes I use some dead stock fabrics that at that moment, maybe in 2012, there was no question of the problem of dead stock fabrics, and I discovered this industrial problem. And these things, they were meaningful for me, but they were not in use anymore for me, but I was not also being able to give them up. And that was some kind of maybe practice that I could, from the Hazel Clark's text, that which guided me in a level that I become transparently the designer, producer, and the consumer of the clothing collection that I made. So which actually proposed by the Slav fashion idea. So it was a kind of paradigm that I tried if this is a possibility or if it's an oxymoron. And it was a very personal experience, and I was very shy to share them. The first 3 pieces I first sent to Bora Aksu, and I took his opinion if I'm in the right direction or not. He really encouraged me a lot about this, because when I started to do that for more than 10 years, I wasn't creating anything else. And all these things that they had different kind of stories. Some of them are in Turkish, that this is about ambivalence. This is a kind of actually, again, an old piece that left from my mother, which is not completed as a sewing. But here I also use the memory of the cloth itself. That here there was also the connection of individual memories, collective memories, because there was different kind of experiences of these dresses for me. It was referring to my individual memory, my family's memory, but also it was referring to fashion history, that different periods of fashion history collectively, and the people who come to exhibition, they could able to see that. And I also thought that the dress could also itself has a memory. The parts of the dress has a memory, and this was something that I used the memory of a color, for example. I took the negative of the color, this type of color, and took the the negativity into a kind of existence, kind of positivity of being, creating the becoming, making the garment become something.
Solen, sorry, I want to maybe just ask a question around
Yeah, please stop me. I mean, if I don't need to speak
around the concept of ahimsa and just to kind of unpack that a little bit.
Why? Yeah, okay. To explain this, I would like to show you 3 images that these are my other works, but I would like to show you these images to you. And now we know every minute there is this kind of textile waste is created in the world. 150 billion garments are created each year, and more than 80% of these garments are becoming waste. Actually, these garments are not waste for us, but for fashion industry, they are waste. And what happens to them? They are sent to third world countries. So waste is not only an environmental problem anymore, but also a kind of social problem. which is maybe taking time of people and time of the energy of nature, sources of nature, socially and environmentally. It's really devastating. And um, the trauma which Rana Plaza created in 2013 kind of predicted. It was predicted before it could happen. And I did this collection in 2012. And what I felt about fashion industry when I started to read and explore the fashion industry, it was a kind of non-visible violence behind the system. And these people are, maybe you know these pictures, I mean, everyone saw it, especially after Andrew Morgan films, True Cost. And what fashion revolution actually started at that day. These people are searching for their families, their loved ones. And it's even worse than knowing that your loved one is dead. So it was I think, the fashion, a garment, which is a piece of a means of desire, cannot be actually the reason of killing people or creating that kind of violence to the environment. So I felt that actually before maybe hearing the news, I heard other kind of cases from the third world countries. After I did this collection and I presented this collection, I'm sorry, Rana Plaza happened. So ahimsa actually was a kind of personal response from me. I mean, I heard about this concept. Actually, one of the few people were talking about these concepts was, of course, Otto von Busch, and he was talking in terms of the religion of fashion. And when I, of course, interested in Buddhism, Hinduism, these kind of cultures, I have been practicing yoga for many, many years. This year I just had to stop, but before I was practicing. And I discovered this concept, and I started to think about the relationship between this ahimsa philosophy, which refers to non-violence or being kindness to everyone, every single creature, every single existence in the world. I wanted to translate it into fashion, into clothing. If the clothing, if the garments would have spirit, if the garments would have a life, how we treat them? Are we treating them like humans? Do we have memories with them? And when the garments get old, what do we do with them? How we actually get rid of them, how we care them, or how we emotionally connect with them. So these were the questions in my mind. And I grew up in a family which actually really prioritize garment making, dressmaking. I grew up in such a family, and they have been always very valuable for me. And when I have started to be able to observe how fashion industry treats them in such an ignorance, with such an ignorance, and there is such a labor behind them, there is such a kind of resource behind them, I discovered the violence of the fashion industry. So, and I wanted to respond to them, but also by actually treating them and taking care of them like a doctor, like try to mediating them, like trying to create a process in a more remedial way to them for the old garments.
So yeah, and maybe that's
I wanted to, I don't cut any piece of garment, never, when I upcycle any piece. I always rip them with a care. I try to repair them also, because there are such pieces that yeah, here maybe I don't have this, but there was another piece that which there was a kind of 100 years old, that this is also like this. And this is something, a kind of act of repair, which is kind of visible, I think, because I wanted to show all the traces, all the patina of the time with that. I didn't want to conceal. I didn't want to hide them. I wanted to reveal the beauty behind it. So it was a kind of, I think, what I did was the fashion ahimsa, because it was a kind of touching and treating the garment with garments with kindness, and you know, like maybe in a similar process that you do for your friends, maybe. I don't know.
But it's such an important point that you're making around what the act of repair or remediation as a kind of relation to the garment acted out on the garment's surface. And I think if I share very shortly a very short little clip from Carter, and it's really like 2 minutes, but it kind of just sort of.
Shall I stop sharing? Okay.
Yeah, and maybe just to share very quickly, it's just an interesting dialogue between the two that I think can be really interesting. Share and kind of open up. So I think you can see this.
One of the main ideas of the work I've seen recently about what you do is about repair, reparation. So could you speak about that?
I mean, if I may speak about the repair in such a short time, I would definitely call this example of the ambivalence of the repair between, let's say, if we polarize conceptually civilizations, between the modern civilization and the traditional civilization. The way the repair of the body as well of object has been developed is completely different. Traditional primitive society used to repair by the injury visible. The injury was either stapled with big staples in wood, or even like in this beautiful Japanese art called kitsugi. When a ceramic pot is broken, it's fixed, and then the crack, the fault, is painted in gold.
Yes.
This is the non-Western conception of repair, the non-Western traditional conception of repair. On the contrary, the Western modern conception of repair has one main goal, which is to erase the injuries. He has the fantasy to claim that repair, I mean, treated modernistically, is able to remove any traces of the injuries and then to bring back to the object or the body its original shape. It's, of course, an idea. It's impossible. We never get back the original shape. But for me, conceptually, it is extremely interesting to understand how much in modern society we live with a sort of big lies, a denial of time. Because when what you want to erase, what you want to remove, when you want to remove an injury, is actually time. History of an object. When traditional society used to repair by keeping the injury of an object, they aim at keeping the trace of time of the accident that has happened in the object. So it's a way to acknowledge it. But and that's why I was fascinated by the First World War, because I think that it's incredible. I cannot continue.
Pure, unadulterated evil.
That was really just a very short, and I think just such an interesting relationship to this question that you're also bringing the garments from the past into the present and keeping that relationship with time. So this notion of time in relation to repair, and I think it's something that the sort of fast fashion industry has been so desperate to kind of pace against or race against, this idea, this erasure of time, newness, and so this and you speak about it as a kind of memory. So I just thought if you wanted just to wrap up, and then we can open the floor to a dialogue.
I think, Erica, that you're just opening another very important concept. I think the time that the relationship that we create with garments, that due to mostly because of the fashion industry manipulates us, and it is manipulated that there is a time of clothes which should be actually temporary. But actually this is a kind of, also we cover this in the slowness of fashion, this concept that which along with ahimsa, also I maybe for Turkey, for the first time I introduced the concept of slow fashion. It was not a kind of in the scale of professional or sectoral kind of slow fashion, but it was a kind of philosophy of slowness, because I was a little bit critical about that, why they have to be replaced by other new stuff. I was also trying to keep them, and I was also resistant about this. And I was also searching for the real time of the clothes. I have been actually, that when I use things also, I try to question it. And this was a kind of more like a consumer act. It was a kind of amateurish act, and I have to admit, because I'm a designer, I'm an academic, but I really act like an ordinary consumer here, also the user of the things. And when people saw my exhibition, that all these women who visited, that they actually immediately that there was a kind of empathic relationship happened in between them and me, and they actually find a way of that, the responding, the creating a system that how they can actually make use of their old clothes or what they keep and why they keep these things, and how they can find a kind of more creatively solution to actually bring them into life. So it was actually underlining that they might have other lives. When I was ripping the clothes also, that they could, I was thinking that they could have the second turn, they could have the third turn. I can rip them again and I can make another version of them. Because when you don't cut and when you don't waste anything, that when these patterns are really just guiding you and limiting you at the same time, that there is a kind of very circular process is happening here. And yeah, it was a little bit also the concern of, you know, drawing another maybe picture of time here, as you spotted very well. But if you have questions, and please, you know, if we could bring it as a kind of dialogue, that I would be really happy. Or if you could open any other, if you have something to criticize, I'm also very, very happy.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Solen. I'm going to stop recording now, and then we can. There we go.